and I just kind of wanted to sit down. I've had some questions from new moms especially who have stopped by either, stopped by here or my Facebook page or Twitter, Instagram, or whatever. They've had a couple questions about sort of the differences between the quote baby blues, postpartum depression, and even into the postpartum psychosis, which is really dangerous and scary. So I just kind of wanted to break it down for you guys, the differences between these three things. They are all caused most of the time by hormonal changes, and if you have anxiety or depression currently, you can be at a higher risk for postpartum depression. I know that I'm an anxious person just kind of as it is, and so when I had kind of a traumatic birth situation, that's what triggered my postpartum depression. And I will go ahead and leave my PPD story in the cards somewhere. It'll be on the screen for you. I'll leave that somewhere for you guys so you can check that out. But this is kind of a breakdown of the signs and symptoms and sort of the varying degrees. Of course, these are not signs and symptoms for everybody. Everyone's different. So your postpartum depression might look different than mine, or your postpartum, baby blues might look different than what other mamas looks like. So these are just kind of the typical signs and symptoms. Of course, you want to ask your doctor and consult with your midwife or your OB, whoever's providing your postpartum care. You want to check in with that person to make sure that everything is good to go. So let's go ahead and get started. So having a baby is really, really exciting, but you want to make sure that you are taking care of you both physically, emotionally, and mentally. So it's really good to keep an eye on how all of those things are working together. It's important to communicate how you're feeling to your medical provider as well as a partner, if you have a partner in your life, or to an important person who is sort of your village, right? You want to make sure that you are communicating how you're feeling both physically, emotionally, and mentally to these people so that they can help you to get care that you need. Because sometimes we as mothers kind of push our needs down, and if others are noticing that maybe we need more support, they can sort of push us to get some extra support. And please know that there is no shame in asking for help, or there is no shame in talking to someone and getting extra support if you need it. Please, please, please just know that. Do not feel like you have to put on a brave face because you're a mom, and do not feel like you're failing because postpartum depression is something that you're experiencing. So please, if you need help, get it. In the description below, I have contact information where you can anonymously, talk to somebody as well. So please, please, please make sure that you get help if you need it. So I'm gonna kind of go through what baby blues typically looks like, what postpartum depression typically looks like, and then what postpartum psychosis can look like. And these are kind of the varying degrees of hormonal changes and sort of the depressive or down states that we can go through right after birth. So again, please, please, please get help if you need it. So with baby blues, these signs and symptoms will last a week to, like 3 weeks. It shouldn't be like an extended thing for months and months and months. You shouldn't be feeling this for months and months and months. If you are, I would say that that is not a normal feeling, and to check in with someone and to get some support. But these are the signs and symptoms that you want to look out for baby blues. And baby blues happens to so many women. Your body just went through a big, massive hormonal change. You had all of these like hormones pumping through your body and supporting your baby, and your body just kind of lost all of that. Like a lot of those hormones were lost with the birth of your baby and the placenta. And then you also go through the hormonal changes. If you're breastfeeding, you get a lot of new hormones. You get a lot of like upper love hormones when baby is first born, and then those kind of fade away, especially if you aren't breastfeeding. Some of that oxytocin can really get pushed down. Yeah, you might just go through a little bit of a depressive, weepy state, and that's okay. So these are the signs and symptoms to look out for baby blues. You might have mood swings. You might have some anxiety. As a new mom, it's really normal to worry about this little tiny creature that you are trusted to keep alive and safe and happy. You might have some sadness or irritability, similarly to how you might feel on your menstrual cycle. You might cry, and that's totally normal. You might have a hard time concentrating on one thing at a time, and you might have some trouble sleeping. So those are all in the normal range of what would be considered to be baby blues. And those, again, would last just a couple of weeks. It shouldn't be like a prolonged thing. I'm gonna talk next about what postpartum depression looks like in a lot of folks. So postpartum depression may appear to be the baby blues at first, but the signs and symptoms here are a little bit to a lot more intense and longer lasting. And if left untreated, can interfere with your ability to care for your baby and handle other daily tasks. So postpartum depression signs and symptoms might include things like loss of appetite, insomnia for a prolonged period of time. And this one is really difficult for new moms to recognize because we're already not sleeping most of the time unless you have some like magic baby. I got a magic baby with my first baby. She slept through the night since she was 6 weeks old. So the insomnia that I was going through was really easy to recognize. But if you have a baby who is waking every couple of hours, this can be really hard to recognize. Although when you feel tired, it's sort of that inability to sleep. So insomnia can be a sign of postpartum depression. Intense irritability and anger can also be a sign. So this is more than just, I don't know, like the mailman knocked on the door and made you like roll your eyes. This is like this intense, like deep, angry feeling that just won't go away, and you get set off by a lot of little things typically. At least that's how I was. So it's a really intense, like irritated, angry feeling. You might also have overwhelming fatigue. Again, this one is hard to recognize in new moms because what is overwhelming fatigue? Like, especially if you're a first-time mom, you already feel more tired probably than you've ever felt in your entire life. So just really be on the lookout for like intense feelings of tiredness, loss of interest in sex. Again, this can be really hard to recognize, especially if you're a first-time mom. You just went through like a major body experience, and I would say most new moms, especially in the first like 2 to 3 months, have very little interest in sex. But if this continues for, I don't know, I would say 6 months to the first year of life, if you're still not in that place where you want to connect with your partner, then you might want to just mention it to your OB or your midwife or whoever you're seeing for your postnatal care. It's really important, and it can be really hard on a marriage when you're not being intimate, honestly. So again, it can be totally normal. I honestly have very little sex drive when I'm breastfeeding. Those hormones, for whatever reason, just are like, no thanks. So it can be really normal, but it's definitely something worth mentioning to your provider. A lack of joy in your life. So if you are just constantly like in a down state, if everything seems like it's going wrong, if you can't find anything to be joyful about, that is a big sign of postpartum depression, and depression just in general. Feelings of shame, guilt, or inadequacy. So if you are having thoughts that, you know, I'm not cut out to be this person's mom. I feel really guilty that I had a C-section. I can't breastfeed and I feel really ashamed about that. You know, there's a number of things that moms typically feel shame about, but if it is prolonged and like a deep feeling of shame and, you know, intense feelings of guilt, that's when I would seek help. I mean, if something doesn't go according to plan, depending on your personality type, you might experience those feelings on a varied level. But if it's prolonged and continued and you just can't like get past it, I definitely would mention it to someone and get some help. Difficulty bonding with your baby is another postpartum depression symptom. This is probably the biggest symptom and the easiest to recognize symptom, but this can occur when you've been struggling with postpartum depression for a while. So again, if you have any of the other things that I mentioned previously, as well as a difficult time bonding with your baby, I definitely would mention it to your provider. Withdrawing from your family and friends. So if all you want to do is stay in bed, not look at your baby, not be with your family, not be with your husband, not be with your partner, whoever it is, you may not want to like go out with your friends, you may just want to stay inside and not be seen, that can be a big sign for postpartum depression. A lack of hygiene, self-care, and that kind of thing. So if this can be like a really hard thing to recognize for moms, especially new moms. I have gone probably a week and a half to 2 weeks without showering at times. I know that's somewhat embarrassing, but you do what you gotta do when you're a new mom. But if you just don't care about how you look, if you were someone who really took good care of yourself and now you're just willing to leave the house in, you know, whatever, or if you just stop taking care of yourself, really, this can be a big sign for postpartum depression. And then the last and you know, a very severe sign is thoughts of harming yourself or your baby. This is not a normal feeling, and you definitely need to get help if you're having these feelings. And then that kind of brings us to the last like piece in this depressive puzzle, I guess it is. Postpartum psychosis is kind of the next step after severe postpartum depression. So here are a few signs and symptoms about that. So with postpartum psychosis, which I want to put out there is a rare thing, I have seen more of it, you know, kind of in the media and that kind of thing, but it's really rare, and typically it develops within like the first 2 weeks of having your baby. The signs and symptoms are even more severe than they are with postpartum depression. So signs and symptoms of postpartum psychosis can include confusion and disorientation. So if you are often feeling confused or disoriented or have like many dizzy spells, that kind of thing, you definitely need to check in and get some help. If you're a partner and you're noticing this in the mother of your child, please encourage them to get help or call the doctor on their behalf. Hallucinations and delusions. So I'm going to use someone like Andrea Yates as an example of postpartum psychosis, especially for the hallucinations part. She was someone who was in the media in the 90s. She drowned her children, all of her children, for religious reasons. I don't know all of the details on the story, but she had become kind of obsessed with the Bible, and she had, you know, felt that this was the only way to protect her children. She said that she had heard, you know, either God or angels talking to her, and so this is definitely hallucinations at work. She was depressed and she had postpartum depression that was untreated for many years, so it developed kind of in that way. The next sign or symptom of postpartum psychosis can be paranoia. So again, Andrea Yates was really paranoid that the only way that she could save her children would be to send them to be with God, essentially. This is definitely an example of the paranoia that comes with postpartum psychosis. And the final sign or symptom for postpartum psychosis is an attempt to harm yourself or to harm your baby or children if you have multiple children. And Andrea Yates had actually had multiple suicide attempts earlier in her life between her pregnancies and even before she had children. So her mental state was very fragile, but once she had her children, she definitely tried to harm herself. And then, you know, in the end, she did end up harming her children. She ended up taking their lives. So postpartum psychosis can be very dangerous. There's also cases where mothers just commit suicide and don't harm their children, which is also incredibly tragic. So if you or someone that you are close to, either your partner or a friend or something, is exhibiting any of these signs after having a child or children, please get the help that you need or encourage them to get the help that they may need. So this is kind of a breakdown of what it all looks like. And again, this is not what it looks like for everyone. It's, you know, someone can have postpartum depression that is more mild and doesn't contain all of these symptoms or even has other symptoms. Please just know that this is kind of a brief overview, and these are the main symptoms that have been identified with moms with postpartum depression. So I hope that this video was helpful to you guys. I hope that it reached some of you out there, and if you are dealing with hormonal changes, emotion changes, or just overall having a difficult time adjusting to being a new mom, please reach out to somebody. If you have nobody else to reach out to, you are welcome to reach out to me. All of my social media is linked down below. You can always contact me there. You can send me an email through YouTube. I am happy to talk with you and support you. We are a wonderful community here. You can also, if you feel so inclined, leave your story down below. I know that lots and lots of people in this community have experienced not necessarily postpartum depression, but some have, and some have definitely gone through the baby blues. So please leave your story down below if you are looking for support. our community here is really wonderful. So with that, thank you guys so much. If you are currently subscribed, I couldn't do what I do without you. If you're new here, again, please hit that red subscribe button below. That would help me out so much, and I just love to watch this community grow. If you would like to connect with me outside of YouTube, I do have an Instagram, a Facebook, and a Twitter, and all of that information is listed down below. And by the way, you guys, have fun today.